My name is Emily. I'm 28 years old, and I thought my family loved me until the day I found out I wasn't invited to the annual family reunion. Not because there wasn't enough space, not because it was last minute, but because my presence was considered too disruptive. That's what my mom said when I called her. Her exact words were, "Emily, I just think it's better this way, for everyone's peace of mind." That hit me like a brick. I had no idea what she was talking about. I hadn't spoken to my cousin Mark in over a year. Yes, we had a falling out, but it was over something so stupid. He wanted to borrow money from my inheritance, money left to me by my grandmother, not his, and I said no. That was it. But apparently that was family betrayal. When I found out the reunion was happening just 3 towns over at my Aunt Linda's lake house, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry about it. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to show up. Quietly. Gracefully. I baked 2 dozen lemon bars, Grandma's recipe, and packed a bottle of wine. I dressed nicely. I told myself I wasn't going to make a scene. I arrived just as everyone was sitting down to eat. I'll never forget the moment the backyard went silent. Forks paused midair. My Uncle David actually dropped his beer. My mom rushed toward me like she was seeing a ghost. "Emily, what are you doing here?" she hissed. I smiled. "Just dropping off Grandma's lemon bars," I said. "She'd hate to see them go to waste." That's when my cousin Mark stood up, slammed his plate down, and yelled, "You weren't invited for a reason!" I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I'm not here for you." Then I turned to my little cousins, who ran up to hug me and asked if they wanted to help pass out the bars. But here's the kicker. As I was walking back to my car, Aunt Linda followed me. She said, "Emily, wait." I stopped. She looked embarrassed. "I didn't know you weren't invited. If I had known, I never would have let them host here. I'm sorry." That one apology meant everything. 3 days later, I got a call, not from my mom, not from Mark, but from my grandmother's lawyer. Apparently, someone had tried to contest the will again. This time, Mark wanted the house, but Grandma had left a handwritten letter sealed in a box labeled, "For Emily only." Inside was a note that read, "If they ever try to push you out, stand tall. You don't owe them silence." So, no, I didn't crash the reunion. I reminded them who I am, and I'll never apologize for that.
I thought that would be the end of it. I honestly believed walking away from the reunion with my head held high would bring me closure. But 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter. It was from my mom. Not a call, not a text, a formal letter. Inside she wrote, "Emily, your behavior at the reunion was completely inappropriate. You embarrassed the family, your presence caused unnecessary tension, you are no longer welcome at any future gatherings unless you apologize to Mark." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. Apologize? To him? For what, existing? Still, I didn't respond. I didn't send a nasty reply. I just sat with the weight of it. And then something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed late one night. It was a message from my Aunt Linda. It read, "I need to talk to you. Something's going on with the will." That caught my attention. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. She looked nervous, like she'd been keeping a secret for too long. She leaned in and said, "Emily, there's something I never told anyone. Grandma made me the secondary executor. If anything happened to the original will, she asked me to step in." I was confused. "Why would anything happen to the will?" I asked. "That's when she dropped the bomb. Because your mother tried to change it after Grandma died." She pulled out a file. Inside were copies of emails, bank transfers, even a digital copy of a forged will that left everything to the family, not me specifically. It was dated 2 days after Grandma passed. Aunt Linda said, "I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to cause drama, but after what they did to you, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I was speechless. My own mother tried to erase me from my grandmother's legacy. With Linda's help, we went to the lawyer. It took months, but the case was reopened. Forensic analysts proved the new will was fake. The lawyer said I had every right to press charges, but I didn't. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted truth. The fallout? It was nuclear. My mom's reputation in the family collapsed. Cousin Mark suddenly went quiet. People who used to ignore my messages were now checking in to see how I was doing. But I didn't respond. I moved out of the city, bought a small cottage in the mountains with the inheritance my grandmother fought to protect. Every morning, I make coffee and sit on the porch with Grandma's old quilt wrapped around my shoulders. And sometimes I still get texts from my mom. They're always the same. Let's talk. But I don't answer. Because Grandma was right. I don't owe them silence, but I don't owe them forgiveness either.
It had been 6 quiet months. No family drama, no legal threats, no forced apologies. Just peace. I had finally started healing. Until one rainy afternoon, I heard a knock on my front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My nearest neighbor lives over a mile away. I peeked through the window and froze. It was my mom, standing on my porch, alone, or so I thought. She looked older, smaller, like life had wrung her out and left nothing but guilt behind. Her eyes were red, and she was holding an umbrella with shaking hands. I opened the door, slowly. "Hi, Emily," she said quietly. I didn't say a word, just waited. I need to talk to you. It's important, please." Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same one Grandma used to sit at when she visited me. She stared at her hands, then finally, she said it. "I was wrong. About everything. About you, about the will, about the reunion. I got scared, and I let Mark manipulate me." I blinked. "Mark?" She nodded. "He told me he'd take care of me financially if I backed him up. Said it was what Grandma really wanted. I was just so desperate to stay close to the family, to feel needed. But I see now I lost you instead." Her voice cracked. That was the first time I'd ever seen my mother cry, truly cry. But then, just as I was about to respond, a second knock echoed from the door. I frowned. "Are you expecting someone?" She shook her head. "No." I opened the door. It was Mark. Soaking wet. No umbrella. A duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He looked wrecked. "Emily, I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I don't have anywhere else to go." He stepped forward. "I lost everything. The fake will? It wasn't even my idea. It was Dad's. Uncle David. He told me you didn't deserve any of it, and that if I helped him change it, he'd make sure I got the lake house. But after it all fell apart, he cut me off, froze everything. I'm living out of my car." I crossed my arms. "And what exactly do you want from me?" He looked down. "Not money, just a place to stay for a couple nights. I need to get back on my feet." I turned to my mother. She was crying silently. I felt the weight of everything. Every lie, every betrayal, but I also heard Grandma's voice in my head again. "If they try to push you out, stand tall, but don't let them make you bitter. That's how they win." So I did something no one expected. I let them both in. But I set rules. No manipulation, no games. 1 week, and that's it. At first it was tense, quiet, awkward. But on the 3rd night, something happened. I caught Mark in the kitchen, staring at the framed photo of Grandma. He didn't notice me at first. Then he whispered,
She always made me feel seen. I ruined that. For the first time, I believed he meant it. Will I ever trust them again? I don't know. But letting them in, for just a moment, wasn't about forgiveness. It was about strength. Because this time, I'm not the one being manipulated. I'm the one in control. And they finally know it. At first, things were quiet. Too quiet. My mom and Mark kept to themselves. They cooked, cleaned, said thank you. They were overly polite, like guests in a hotel. But I could feel it. The tension, the guilt, the performances. And then it started. The first crack came from Mark. He sat down next to me one night, out on the porch. We hadn't spoken much since he arrived. He took a long sip of coffee and said, "I think Mom's lying to you." I blinked. What? He looked me dead in the eyes. She knew what Uncle David was planning the whole time. She didn't just go along with it. She helped him. I heard them. She was the one who typed the fake will. I was stunned. Mark continued. She only turned on him when she realized she wasn't getting a dime. That's when she came running to you. I didn't know what to believe. But then, 2 days later, I found my mom in the guest room, crying. Not quietly, full sobs. I asked what was wrong. She looked up and said, "Mark is trying to get you to kick me out. He wants the cottage. He told me last night." I froze. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "He thinks if he isolates you again, he can convince you to sign it over one day. Don't let him do this to you." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I confronted them both, sat them down at the kitchen table, and told them exactly what I'd heard from both sides. They exploded. Mark accused my mother of betrayal, called her a liar, said she'd sold him out for a last-minute shot at redemption. She screamed back, said he was a manipulator since he was 5 years old, and that Grandma always loved me more, and he couldn't stand it. All the quiet, hidden family rot started spilling out. Uncle David, the bribes, the secrets, the years of faked smiles at family dinners, the rivalry between my mom and Aunt Linda. Even the fact that my mom once tried to stop Grandma from moving closer to me before she died. It was like a floodgate opened and I was drowning in it. That night, I made a decision. I printed 2 one-way bus tickets. I handed one to each of them. "I gave you both a second chance," I said. "And instead of healing, you turned this house into a war zone. I won't be your battlefield." My mom cried again, but this time I didn't feel sorry for her. Mark didn't say anything. He just stared at me like he wanted to fight it, but couldn't find the words. The next morning, they were gone. I sat on the porch alone, wrapped in Grandma's quilt. The cottage was quiet again, but this time not peaceful, just empty. Later that week, Aunt Linda called. She said Uncle David had disappeared, left the country apparently, took most of the family money with him. Mark moved into a rented studio near the edge of town. My mother went to live with a cousin she once swore she hated. The rest of the family stopped speaking. The group chat? Dead. Holiday plans? Canceled. The family didn't just fall apart. It collapsed. But I'm still standing. Because sometimes you're not the one who breaks the family. You're just the first to stop pretending it wasn't already broken.
It had been almost a year since I'd kicked them out. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Most days, I loved the silence. Other days, I hated how heavy it felt. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, a letter arrived. No return address, no handwriting on the envelope, just my name, typed on an old typewriter, and a stamp so faded I could barely read it. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of yellowed paper and one sentence. I never died. I had to leave. I froze. My hands started shaking.
because at the bottom of the page was a signature I hadn't seen in 18 years. Love, Dad. But my father died when I was 10. Car accident. That's what they told me. I remember the funeral. I remember the closed casket. I remember my mom sobbing for weeks, locking herself in her room and refusing to speak. So this had to be a sick joke, right? I called Aunt Linda. She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Emily, sit down." She told me everything. My father didn't die. He disappeared. He was a whistleblower. He had uncovered something massive inside the company he worked for, money laundering involving multiple executives, including Uncle David. Yes, Uncle David. The same man who tried to forge Grandma's will, the same man who fled the country. Dad found out, and before he could report it, the threats started. First anonymous calls, then a car following him home from work, then someone broke into our house when I was at school. So he made a deal with federal authorities. He entered witness protection. And my mother knew. She chose not to tell me. She held a fake funeral. She burned his clothes. She told me to be strong. And for 18 years, she let me believe he was dead. My hands were numb. Aunt Linda said she was never supposed to say anything. But when the investigation reopened after the forged will, something must have shifted. Dad must have heard. And now, he was reaching out. The letter had a second page. I hadn't seen it at first. It was stuck to the envelope lining. It had an address and one final sentence. "You don't have to forgive me. Just let me explain." I sat there, frozen. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about my life, was a lie. And for the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I was curious. What kind of man walks away from his family to protect them? And what kind of mother lets her daughter mourn a living parent? I packed a bag. Tomorrow I'm driving to the address. If it's real, if it's him, then everything changes. And if it's not, then I'll finally bury the past. For real this time. I barely slept that night. My hands kept shaking as I drove. 3 hours, then 5, then 7. The address led to a small cabin in Montana. Hidden behind pine trees, no mailbox, no road sign, just a gravel path and an old wooden fence. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and walked up the steps. My heart was pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. This time, the door creaked open, and there he was. A man in his late 50s, gray hair, beard, still tall, still him. His eyes met mine and filled instantly with tears. "Emily?" I nodded. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, or maybe a memory that hurt too much to keep buried. He stepped forward, slowly, like he didn't trust the moment was real. Then he hugged me. I didn't move. I didn't hug back. I just stood there, stiff, trying to stop myself from shaking. He pulled away. "You look just like your mother when we met." The irony burned. I followed him inside. The cabin was small but warm, shelves of books, a fire going, and on the mantel, photos. Me. As a child. Photos I didn't even remember being taken. "How do you have those?" I asked. "I never stopped watching," he said softly.
Witness protection meant I couldn't contact you, but I kept track when I could. Every birthday, every graduation. I know about the reunion, about the will, about your grandmother, about Mark. I stared at him. So you watched from the shadows while my life burned. He looked away. They told me it was safer that way. For you. For everyone. And you just listened? I snapped. You let Mom lie to me? Let her bury you? You could have written something. Anything. He took something from his coat pocket. A stack of letters, rubber banded together. I took them. Each one addressed to me, each one unopened. They never delivered them, he said. They said contact risked exposure. If they caught me they'd pull me into permanent custody. No cabin, no choice, no freedom. I didn't know what to say. My hands trembled as I held the stack. Years of silenced words. He watched me carefully. Then he whispered, "Emily, there's something else. Something I never told anyone." I looked up, heart in my throat. It wasn't just Uncle David laundering money. I froze. Your mother helped him? Not later. From the start. My breath caught. No, she wouldn't. But in my chest, I already knew it was true. The way she begged me not to talk to Aunt Linda, the way she defended David until the very end, the way she mourned my father but never let anyone see the body. I sat down slowly. Every memory was cracking apart. Dad walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a file folder, and handed it to me. Inside, bank records, emails, photographs, wire transfers with her name on them. She wasn't a victim. She was part of the machine that destroyed everything. And she'd lied to my face every single day since then. I stood up. I need to go. Emily. He tried, but I held up a hand. I just need space. He didn't stop me. I drove home in silence. A week passed. I didn't call her. She didn't call me. But last night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. My house, my porch, my front door at night. And the text below it, "You shouldn't have gone looking."
I didn't sleep after I got that photo. My porch, my door, at night. Someone had been there, watching, waiting. I locked every window, checked every camera, checked the woods around the house twice with a flashlight, but I already knew. They were gone. Whoever it was, they wanted me to know they could get close, that I was never really safe. The next morning, I drove to the sheriff's office, showed them the photo, explained everything. The reunion, the will, the fake death, my father, the file, the money, the corruption. They listened, took notes, told me they'd look into it. But their eyes said something else. They thought I was paranoid, or worse, lying. I left feeling more alone than ever. I tried calling Dad. No answer. I tried again. The number had been disconnected. Gone. I called Aunt Linda. She didn't pick up either. Her voicemail said she was on vacation, but her voice sounded strained, like someone was listening. I didn't know what was real anymore. That night, I got another message. No words, just a photo. My childhood home, burned to the ground. No headlines, no news articles, just ash. I recognized the mailbox. It was the same one I painted with Mom when I was 7. The caption read, "Loose ends." That's when I knew. This wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about inheritance or revenge or family feuds. This was a cleanup, and I was the last stain on the floor. I packed a bag, grabbed the burner phone Dad had given me before I left the cabin, and called the number scratched into its back. A voice answered. It wasn't him. It was a woman. "Emily," she said, "if you want to live, run." Then she hung up. 3 minutes later, every light in my house went out. Complete blackout. No power, no signal. I didn't wait. I ran to the car, started it, sped down the mountain road with no headlights, no plan, just instinct. I didn't know who to trust. My family was gone. My father was missing. My mother had lied about everything. The authorities were useless. Every road behind me was fire. Every path forward, fog. And as I crossed the county line, watching the sunrise crack over the horizon, I realized something. I wasn't part of a family. I was part of a cover-up. And now, I was the last witness.